What's up?
All right. Thank you for joining us. We are the Master Blaster podcasters putting misinformation on blast. I am Geeziz, and we have dirtymouf with us as well. We are the Master Blaster podcasters. We're going to do our third episode here. It's going to be on immigration. Hopefully you've checked out our first couple so far. First one was on woke ideology. Second one was on global warming. Right now you can listen to them on rss.com. Shortly we will be distributed throughout the podcast world, Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, whichever podcast channel that you like, and hopefully pretty soon after that, YouTube. So let's get into this. We have immigration, which is a very general subject. We're going to break it down into three subsets or three chapters. Number one is going to be the current border control border crisis, we'll say, with the humanitarian issues that have been plagued at Rio Grande for years and are certainly in the news now. Should we have an open border? We're going to talk about border patrol as well. We're going to go into why there's such an influx from Mexico. We're going to talk about the country of Mexico a little bit. See if maybe what they can do to keep a few of their citizens within their own country and give them some better lives there so they don't have to constantly flee. And number three, we'll get into a little bit of the North American Free Trade Agreement, otherwise known as NAFTA, drafted in 1994. Well, let's start on the border crisis currently. dirtymouf, we've seen on the news these floating buoys, which I thought at first were, just had some barbed wire. As it turns out, there's more to these than just barbed wire. What's going on there?
So I learned today that not only is there barbed wire, there's in between each buoy, there's I guess saw blades or something. And recently I learned that some of the border patrol or agents are actually starting to complain that it's even too inhumane for them. Like they don't, some of the agents don't feel comfortable throwing kids into the Rio Grande. So it's getting so bad. You got people complaining, and it's just making Greg Abbott look like a fucking savage.
Yeah, so pretty much his updated policy. I believe it's the Lone Star policy that they've instituted down there.
Right.
Too. I have family that are in law enforcement, and I think everyone has some people that are in law enforcement, military. My cousin actually did started out as a sheriff, and then got a job with the national police somehow. Actually went down to the border and had to work there for a while, and he said it was the most disgusting, most amazingly horrifying job he's ever had.
Wow.
He came back and went back to school and became a lawyer since. But I guess you'd have to have a certain stomach or a certain mindset to work down there. He certainly didn't want to go. It was almost like being drafted, not to go into war, but to go to someplace you don't want to go rather than staying local. So there's children and people being cut up by these two-way saw blades, these floating buoys that have all kinds of sharp objects on them, barbed wire. Let's talk about what, I guess this is certainly something that the governor could improve upon. So let's talk about the humanitarian crisis that's evolved from how people are treated there. How could we improve our treatment of the people, even if we don't maybe take them in right away? What are some things maybe we could do while they wait? I mean, could we do something where we don't cut them up? Can they wait somewhere? Can they anything but this? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, there's several different ways. Well, first, like they have detention centers, which is gross because these people aren't criminals; they're fleeing for help because the countries they're leaving from are I don't know how to say this. Like they're fleeing because their countries aren't safe enough to stay in. And it's not like they
they could be getting chased by cartels or something. Who knows what they're running from? So there's a number of things.
Or a shitty government. But it's first of all, it's like you could make the detention centers actually like humane. And second, not sexually assault the people in the detention centers. That would help. Secondly, just treat these people like humans. They have to work on. I learned that the process is screwy, where it's kind of like it comes off like the U.S. government has an attitude like, well, you just deal with it with what we got, and sometimes they get cell phones, or if they have cell phones, the links to the website that they need to check in are faulty. Like I said, there isn't a clear system. You have to go to they make it so you have to go to a town or a city for a checkpoint. Some people are unable to do that. It would also probably help if Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis stopped using migrants as political tools and shipping them and lying to some of these people and shipping them to different parts of the country.
Yeah, how about
it? Maybe weed out like the racist bigots on the border patrol who are like whipping people. Like there's a picture of these cowboy border patrol on horseback, literally like whipping Haitian migrants. If you see that picture, it's just this sick attitude, and it's like go to the source. Like the U.S. government could have put a leaning on some of these countries because their policies are shit, and they're unstable. So cut funding, like the United States shells out a lot of money to other countries. I mean, it's rough, but I guess currently just treat these people humanely and maybe build or have better facilities to store them and treat them as humans. Like this is an emergency. The Ukrainians and Russians, when that whole war started, they zipped right on through and had no problem because they were white people. But a lot of these people are coming from countries that the Republicans deem as shitholes, and they don't treat them right. It's like, well, let's help them out. That's what I thought this country was all about.
Yeah. Now, just as a secondary voice, a sort of an opposition voice, because we know that there's, besides the fact that there's Republicans and Democrats, I mean, there's probably a few Democrats out there that might have a stronger opinion, anti-immigration stance than we do. Now, for the record, technically, if you do try to enter illegally, if you do enter, you're a criminal at that point, or actually attempting to enter illegally as a criminal. Certainly doesn't explain the treatment that they're getting as far as getting cut up with buoys. Some people, I think, might not have too much sentiment for them if they're trying to enter illegally, and as far as they do want to treat them like criminals, because according to them, they are. Now, as far as the Ukraine, I mean, do you think this is really an even situation with a parallel situation with the Ukraine? I mean, they're getting attacked by Russia. Now,
Right.
there's a difference of being in war, where you're getting attacked by Russia, and technically Ukraine are they're not our enemies the way Russia is. I mean, we do give them support specifically to be able to keep Russia away. Now, technically, Mexico's not getting attacked by another country, although you could certainly say the cartels are almost another country within themselves. But what would you say to people who are saying, hey, this isn't a similar situation. Ukraine's getting attacked and Mexico is not. It's just a constant situation with Mexico as opposed to a one-time thing with Ukraine.
Well, I would say these people are fleeing dangerous situations that are unlivable, and I get that, Ukrainians are fleeing for war, but, there's like 6 countries right now that the U.S. is involved with and contributing to destroying. You have like the Syrians; they could be helped out, but we treat them like garbage. The Congolese, their country's going through some major battles. I mean, there's the Iraqis. I mean, there's people who, the Iraq. You have the Iraq war or whatever, genocide in some ways. They could be let over because we're contributing. I mean, the United States government and the military are everywhere, and a lot of I guess the way I look at it is that we're trying to help Ukrainians, and I get that they need help and they need to flee, but I mean there's other countries that the United States is involved with that have been, like I said, the Syrians that have been pounding militarily for years, and they get demonized. And I think I mean, from a perspective, it just looks like discrimination. The Haitians that come over, like, their country is going through shit, and a country doesn't have to be war-torn necessarily for people to come through. And even if they were, they're getting denied. And it's like, if you're going to use that, excuse, then it's like, then you need to help all the other people. And it's not fair. And I understand, some people may have an attitude where we can't afford it and this and that, but we have enough money to send troops all over the world to protect financial interests, but these people come over for humanitarian reasons, and they're treated like garbage. So I don't know. I just look at like we can afford to go destroy shit, then we can afford to bring people over.
Sounds like a possible future podcast episode as far as where do we have embassies? What are our interests there?
Right.
And should we even be there?
Right.
So certainly we do have interest around the world, and partly to keep peace, but anybody that doesn't think it's for financial reasons, you're kidding yourself. And certainly for years it was about blocking communism and promoting democracy, which is a great thing, but it really is up to the will of the country, the people of the country, whether it's Vietnam or wherever you have it, Cuba, as to what type of political system they want to have. Now, as far as besides, it's not just in southern Texas. Excuse me. There's problems in New York with immigrants coming over illegally, and here in Chicago is a major city where a lot of them have either gotten bused to, or they've sent them on planes over here.
Right.
And to talk about those two places, Chicago and New York, very quickly, Chicago, some of the residents of Chicago on the south side of the city, where they set up, they put them in temporary homes, they're trying to find them jobs. Some of the city residents here in Chicago, DM used to live here, I live here now, are upset. They think that they're giving them the royal treatment as far as setting them up in temporary free housing and doing more to help them get jobs and get assimilated than they do for people within the city. I mean, I don't understand how you can't have some sympathy for these people. They're getting shipped all around the the United States. But what do you think about residents in a city who are upset that they're going to the city? One more thing before you answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing in New York. Apparently the mayor is like, in New York is like, look, what do you want me to do?
Right.
I mean, we have a moral conscience to try to, help these people fit in somewhere. And the thought process is if you do help find them homes and jobs, that they'll be productive citizens. And certainly the data suggests that when immigrants do assimilate here, they do become productive, hardworking citizens. What do you think about these cities that some of the residents are not too happy that the cities are trying very hard to help them acclimate to the city?
Well, I look at it like when I lived in Chicago, I became aware of a lot of undocumented Irish people, Russians, Ukrainians, Eastern Europeans, and nobody had a problem with that. There are a lot of undocumented white people, and I don't ever hear complaint about that. And they are obviously running, they're in the system, and there's no problem. You look at a construction site, I bet you could check everybody's status and see what's up, and find out what's going on. So I think it's a matter of I think it's been an overblown scare tactic by the media and politicians. That it's just I understand the capacity thing, because New York right now is full, and a lot of that is caused by, like I said, Greg Abbott and DeSantis shipping people. But I mean I think it's a xenophobic thing. I think it's because these are people from other countries, and they're not from European countries, and that's my opinion. Because I know how people can be in the double standards. We have a history of people coming to this country and not being residents. I mean, you had all the people who immigrated here during the was it 1860s or 70s? You had the Irish, the Jewish, and the Italians coming over. They were here illegally for a while and assimilated. I don't know. I just I don't think it's fair. And I'm a bleeding heart liberal or progressive, and it's why not? I mean, like I said, it goes back to we don't have problems going to other countries and sticking their opinion to those countries. But when people come here because it's the United States military has destroyed their country, made it uninhabitable, or supported a dictator. I just think we should help them out. I don't buy the whole thing that these people are upset and that they can't deal with it. The citizens, and also it's who are these people complaining? How does that affect them? And is it, are they mad just because a lot of people are there? How does this affect them? That's my thing. And like I said, we could also have a better system that, a lot of it goes down to, there's been all these different bills passed over the years, and it's they don't get passed. Everything, it's more they're quick to judge and browbeat the people coming over and using them as political fodder, but it's
yeah, I agree. I mean, it does seem to draw the ire if it's from Mexico as opposed to other countries. Like you said, there's been other countries that have had immigrants, I wouldn't say pass through, but come through without doing it the same process that you're supposed to.
Right.
For some reason, it does draw the ire of, and it is being used as a political stunt by the politicians. Quite famously, Trump got upset when Abbott did it. He said, "Wait a minute." He goes, "That was my idea." He wanted to take credit for it.
Yeah.
He's a lovely human being.
He's a psychopath.
And I want to ask you a question about the border here. I mean, do you think we should have open borders, either in New York or Mexico, or at least have a pecking order set up of why you're coming? Now, if people find out about this, they can just lie and say, oh, I'm from this country, not that country, and it's because they're at war. But some people have suggested maybe it would be better if we have a quicker process. Now, of course, as far as getting people through, if it's for urgent situations, now, of course, some people will say that's exactly what the criminals are going to try to do. What would you say to those people? First of all, do you think we should have an open border? And should we, how could we adjust it even if we don't have an open border? Well,
first, when I've, looked up and seen interviews with people who migrate here, and anybody who just generally applies for citizenship from other countries, the process is so long to apply for it and this and that, and then there's a waiting process. It takes a long time unless you're, like you say, you're taking drastic measures. I personally think that the border is it's kind of closed already, and the process isn't working. I think they could streamline the immigration process because they get thorough. I mean, they get super thorough. You have people who, and I was approached by this woman I met online, and she thought, well, if I came to America and I just, you married me and I came there, I'd have a better life. And I tried to explain to her, if you came here and we got married, they're going to check on us and they're super anal about everything, and that would destroy, I'll go to jail, you'll go to jail or get deported. And I think it just needs to be clear, first of all, and it needs to be streamlined, and they need to redo it. It's a long fucking, it takes years for people to get their citizenship, and to get here, and I think that it can be streamlined, and I do believe in open borders. I guess when you say open borders, when people say open borders, you can't, are you, when you say that, or when people say this, is that literally building walls like Trump wanted, which didn't work and destroys the environment, or just a stricter system? Because a lot of people come through by plane, and so it's it's not just people just physically coming through the borders in Texas, and also people come through Canada. Cartels deal with the Canadian border as well. It's not like Canada is innocent in this situation, but I don't know. It just seems like Canada doesn't have the same problem with immigration that we do, and we could probably borrow some of their policies.
Yeah, no, there's obviously two different economic systems in Canada and Mexico. Canada's is much closer to ours than Mexico is. Mexico's got some big problems,
right?
Which we'll talk about in a minute. But it seems like if you were an American criminal, then you'd want to go probably to Canada first, I guess, but vice versa, or vice versa if you're a Canadian criminal. But you'd certainly get some if we don't have the numbers in front of us, but you'd certainly get some fight on the right if we're trying to say that it's even as far as immigration problems of Canadians sneaking in versus down south.
Right.
But just for the argument's sake, I do not believe in open borders, only because I think you need to have control of the amounts of people that are coming in and out. It's very basic that I think that once somebody is a U.S. citizen, that you're responsible for them, and you're responsible for making sure that there's proper housing, that there's enough jobs, that there's certainly is why we could keep a census in this country. We want to know how many people there are versus how many jobs versus how many, do you have a house? How much do you make? What is your living situation? All these things go into are we properly assimilating people when they come in? Do they have an opportunity to have a better life?
Yeah.
Because Lord knows if somebody doesn't have a house and a job, that's what's creating that's what creates criminals, or that's the problem in Mexico in the first place. Not enough jobs for the people there. So, but I certainly believe there could be when you talk about years to get through, I mean, that's ridiculous. If somebody is fleeing a situation where, and who knows how far cartels will take it. We hear stories of, we'll talk more about cartels in a minute. If you run into cartels, basically in Mexico, if you are driving around and you have a family and you run into a massive truckload of cartels, they'll want to keep you and make you a member of their cartel and work for them, and otherwise you could get killed. So who knows how far they would take it as far as there's lots of cartel deaths. Drug-related deaths around the border. Now, you mentioned earlier about people flying over. Certainly, if you're connected to any high-level criminal, people talk about criminals coming over. If you are any kind of a successful criminal in Mexico, you're not going through the border. You are going to fly into this country, if you have any money. So there's been a lot of violence around the border, not just from the American Border Patrol or the floating buoys, but there's cartels that go all the way up to the border to kill some people. I mean, I've heard a lot of instances of that. So
they come in the country. They're in the country.
Absolutely. And do you think they're maybe vindictive enough to go chase people to the border and get them before they actually get in?
No, I think they just come in, and if they
well, I'd say yes, if they would be vindictive enough. We're talking about the cartels.
Yeah. I think so. I think they go beyond. Man, this subject's hard for me because it's so complicated and in depth.
It is. There's not a simple answer. That's what we're talking about. We're trying to come to I'm almost trying to treat this as if, what if I was a politician?
Right.
And people were, the people that vote you in are, even if you're on the right side of things, which is a little more lenient towards immigrants. Mm-hmm. There's the history of our country. I mean, it's right on the Statue of Liberty that will take you in.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, too. That's what separates us from. I can't think of another country that has a relationship with a bordering country where so many people flee into the country. And I'm thinking specifically about the developed world in Europe. Mm-hmm. And I know it's very hard. They make it very hard if you're trying to immigrate to their country to get jobs. Certainly, France is the one that gave us the Statue of Liberty, and they have these work cards that you have to wait to get. And once you get one, you basically can't get a job. Talk about a union. You can't get a job anywhere unless you have these work permits.
Right.
So we're a little bit different here. Okay, let's get into the second topic here. If we have other points to make, if you want to go back and make a point about the border, we certainly can do that. Okay. Let's move on to number 2, which is Mexico. The country of Mexico.
Yeah.
All right, so we have, obviously, we can look at our government. How are we handling the attempted migration of Mexican citizens? We can look at our border patrol. How are they treating these people? We can look at these floating buoys that are being instituted by the Lone Star policy of Governor Abbott in South Texas. Mm-hmm. But let's take a look at Mexico, because they are the main culprit in why their own citizens are fleeing the country and trying to come here. What are they doing wrong? What are they doing that's so poor that it's just this constant stream? It's been happening on a major level for years. And what I looked up, we'll spout some statistics first. I just went onto Wikipedia and got some information about their some of the financial crises they've gone through the years. Now, first of all, you had mentioned earlier, Sean, DM, excuse me. We got to get rid of these damn aliases. We keep seeing each other's names all the time. It's ridiculous. But you mentioned earlier about how can we go back to Mexico and say, hey, look, you got a problem. What are you doing to help?
Right.
This is what we're trying to do. We obviously need some help. We're failing in some areas. What are you trying to do? Now, in 2022, President Obrador of Mexico, who's been in there since 2018, introduced a new spending bill, and nowhere in the spending bill was intended to address the problems at the border. Nowhere in there was there did he put into his spending agenda? Let's put instead of a detention type center, let's make a new, nicer waiting area. Let's put some of our troops there to make sure that if the cartels are around the area, that working with the U.S. Border Patrol, we can help eliminate some of that problem.
Right.
And nowhere in there it was all spending on infrastructure, which is great. It's going to give construction jobs, whatever. But what do you think about Mexico not touching the problem at all, not spending any money to help their own people that are sometimes dying trying to get through?
Right. There's been like a long history with the U.S. government and Mexico, and like you had like the CIA historically interfering with Mexican government, and I think they have to work on their country as well, and I mean it's like why are people coming? Why would people leave? You know, their home country to come here to put up a bunch of shit, and it's I don't know. They gotta. How do you get rid of the cartels? You know, or how do you at least make it to a point where you could not subdue, but like how do you make it
limit their power? Yeah, limit their power. How are they growing so much faster than the other parts of the workforce in Mexico?
I mean, it's just crazy because like they're killing journalists that expose. You know, when they're killing journalists who expose the cartels and who's part of it. And a lot of times in the reporting, you find that there's law enforcement, military, special crime units, and they're infiltrated by the cartel. So it's like this game. And then on top of it, like, you see reports where like sometimes the cartels are more constructive in some ways in local politics and the way they handle things than the government. And so it's just like, there's like a lot of corruption. It's just clean up, cut funding, work, I don't know, get stronger, get more tolerant, or not tolerant, but more, for more of a foot up the cartel's ass. This is one of those things where it's like, it reminds me of like when we're talking about the dark web. How do you go to the source of this problem? And it didn't help the United States as, from the 70s and 80s and partly the 90s contributed to the problem of the drug war and, getting involved. So it's just one of those things. And they're here too. The cartels aren't just in Mexico. They've infiltrated a lot of like small town America as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned journalists being killed. 130 politicians running for office in 2018 were killed before they actually made it into office. And there's certainly only one area you can point to that could be responsible for those deaths. 130. Can you imagine if that happened in America? There was that many politicians being killed by gangs before they and so let's take a look at the comparison of Mexican cartels with American gangs. To me, the biggest thing to compare these two is how to keep people out of them. I guess let's say the most successful ways to keep people out of gangs. Now, a little Mexican history as far as financially. Let's look at I have very little information about their education system, but financially, as far as their job markets and job growth, I can talk about that a little bit. Because if you ask me, when I talk about what can keep what can keep kids out of gangs, it's opportunities, other opportunities when you're young, opportunities to make money, opportunities for education, to have talk to planners. What do you call those? The people in high schools that you talk to help you plan out your career planners. I'm forgetting the title of the. Damn it. Anyway.
Counselors. Career counselors.
Counselors. There you go.
Yeah.
So better schools, put more money into schools, and I'll tell you what. Whatever money that the president put into infrastructure, schools better be a part of it, the education system.
Yeah.
So it's been shown that areas that have better education have better access to further their education they want or their skill sets to be able to be a more educated workforce to get better jobs. Another problem that they have in Mexico is the major corruptions of their labor unions. Their labor unions that started in the 1940s through the 1980s, what I learned, were basically being run and overlooked by major businesses and the richest people in Mexico. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out how that's going to go. It's not going to go into the workers' favor.
Yeah.
It's going to go in the favor of the owners of these big companies. And what I found out is that, I mean, it really put a total separation of the rich versus poor during that 40-year time period.
Sure.
Now, since then, they've tried to clean up their unions to make sure that they have proper representation in the unions, that have the mindset of, you know, they're in it for the workers. That's why they're doing it, not to help enrich the businesses.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. So, I mean, what do you think, TM? The best thing I can think of is like, how do you stunt the cartel's growth? Better education. The other thing is that still we talk about. In America, there's what's called, if you're an undocumented laborer, which is different than a citizen,
Right.
just means that you work under the table. In Mexico, which of course you're not probably going to get benefits, you're not going to be a part of the union, and you're not going to get certain guarantees or perks. When I say perks, too, I'm not just talking about raises, but some of the basics that you should as far as work conditions and all these types of things. It's a 2-to-1 ratio in Mexico as far as undocumented workers versus documented. So what do you think about the comparison of cartels versus American gangs, education system? Do you think that's something that can help the problem?
Yeah, in addition, how about drug legalization, like fully? Go at their, you know, their product. Go at what they're selling. Crack down on that as well.
Now, DM, do you mean currently the biggest problem is cocaine and fentanyl?
Yeah, and that's a huge problem.
Okay,
that's another subject that could be discussed too, because it's affecting Americans as well. They have a huge problem with like how they treat women and indigenous people too. But
yeah, they do.
I'd say just go for like, go to their moneymaker. Go hit the moneymaker or hit their product. Like I said, cut funding. The U.S. could cut funding to Mexico.
Well, first of all, do you think that the next topic we're going to talk about, North American Free Trade Agreement, that put a lot of Mexican, basically took a lot of jobs out of America, put them in Mexico. We'll talk about the evil of that and how American politicians have gotten away with that. I have no idea. But now, if we're helping them out with jobs, I mean, America, do you really think that as far as American-Mexican relations, that the American government would be okay with them allowing drugs to be legalized? If you think the American government would really come down on them and sanction them and possibly even create embargoes on trade if they're doing that based off of how we feel about drugs in this country and the deaths associated with currently with fentanyl and maybe not with cocaine as much, but with fentanyl. I mean, what do you think? Do you think the government would go for that, or?
No, I mean, the U.S. government still has a lot of hang-ups. There's still a lot of politicians who still think that the old way of doing things worked. And like the xenophobia is a problem as well. There's a lot that contributes to this, but yeah, I mean, attitude and just changing policies as well. I feel it's like whatever the United States throws at that problem, it's not working, and the Mexican government needs to step up a little more. But it's like, how are they gonna if it's a very corrupt, if it's got a problem with corruption?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move forward to the next topic. This one, I think, will have quite a bit to say about this. It's been a plague on America for years and years. There's the North American Free Trade Agreement. Now, of course, American jobs have been shipping overseas to China and to other third world countries that have helped build up their industrial force and actually created an industrial revolution in China.
Yeah. But
we'll deal with the NAFTA agreement that was signed in 1994, championed by Bill Clinton. And I got to tell you, DM, as we're looking through history and we look at presidents, the more we look at Bill Clinton, and that could be a separate podcast, but his presidency is not looking too well. I know that he inherited an improving economy from Bush when Bush, I believe he's the one that at the very last minute raised taxes before he left office, which didn't sit too well for Republicans, of course, but that is really what created the robust burst of the economy in the 1990s. Now, Clinton, of course, helped sign this into agreement. Basically, what it was is that American companies could shift factory labor jobs over to Mexico and face little if no surcharges or import fees as far as getting these products back to sell at a great discount. What disgusts me about this is that we look at the largest manufacturers to go to Mexico,
right?
Which are certainly the auto industry. In fact, not just General Motors, but there's a lot of companies that have shifted their. And basically, what happens is the parts. Some of the more intricate work is done here as far as making the parts. They're shipped over with the pieces to Mexico for assembly, and that's where a lot of the assembly is done. Mm-hmm. Those are still major U.S. jobs. In fact, look, there's people aren't as bright here that could use jobs like that. We're not quite as technically intricate, but the Homer Simpsons, that's something he would be able to do, just assemble the parts into a car. So anyway, Coca-Cola bottling has major manufacturers in Mexico, medical devices, and let me see what else. The aerospace. What's that?
I think Tesla is down there too.
Tesla, sure, they're part of the automotive industry. Honeywell is down there. The aerospace engineering, which is I didn't find a company. I just found that the industry of aerospace has moved down there. I'm not sure if that's assembling or whatever. I don't even want to guess.
Yeah.
Spaceships or whatever. I mean, to go to the moon or something. But that's a big thing that has helped their economy, but it's helped destroy our middle class. And what makes me sick is that the biggest inheritance of fortunes of this agreement is obviously not the middle class. Mm-hmm. And what it is, it's the stockholders. Basically, it boosts the company's profits. If you're a majority stockholder, which you have to be rich to have major stock in major companies anyway. Mm-hmm. This is a part of the problem that Americans don't realize. When we're blaming Mexicans coming across the border, when we're blaming whoever the fuck people want to try to blame, gay people, black people, Black Lives Matter, and kneeling for the anthem, and all this bullshit. All this is designed to do is to take our eyes and our focus off of what, to me, is the major problem in America, and it's the difference of more socioeconomical differences, and the separation of rich and poor is so friggin' disgusting here.
Yeah.
And let me just tell you something. In 2008, 15 years ago, Bill Gates was the richest human being, but he was worth maybe $15 million the most.
Yeah.
Now, in 2023, in 15 years, there's been a boom in billionaires. And now billionaires are worth $250 billion when you talk about Elon Musk. And guess what? They're so friggin' smart. And they have such great ideas. They're going to get into a fucking cage match and wrestle about something. That shows you how brilliant our millionaires really are. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's disgusting. And, I just want to say, also the jobs that were shipped down there, they don't pay people shit in Mexico either, the factory workers.
Yep. You know that they get, the automotive workers get an average of $2 an hour.
Yeah. And it's just disgusting. It's like, you helped maybe like the corporations out, or Clinton helped the corporations out. But as far as the people, like, he not only screwed the U.S., but he also contributed to screwing Mexicans as well, and other people there as well, and contributing to a lot of the problems. When I learned that when I was younger, I thought that just doesn't make any sense. Why are you doing that? Because the 90s was a booming time. I mean, people were like investing. You could buy a house. You could.
Tech industry was out of control. Right.
And now it's like, it's just become slave labor and child labor. And I think that was one of the two biggest things that Clinton failed at was the NAFTA signing, and then his crime bill. So I think that...
Three strikes and you're out or something?
Huh?
Was that the 3 strikes and you're out?
Yeah.
No matter what the crime is?
Yeah. He also, real quick, he also affected, the welfare program as well. He made that, more stringent to appease the Republicans.
True. Yep. But he was a lot more centrist than we thought back then. We look back on him now. Any other country, he's actually probably a Republican if you put him in Europe.
Right. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, too, the whole thing, what this reminds me of? The automotive industry and the NAFTA agreement reminds me of Walmart. As far as taking, Walmart, of course, famously will not buy, everything they get is overseas, either from Korea or a different Asian island or from China. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Bill Clinton, who, I'm not saying he got the entire idea himself, the NAFTA agreement, but him and his wife sat on the board for Walmart in the 1980s and were part of that, the decline of the American worker as far as sending the great, you get, a couple of cashiers and some people stocking shelves, but all of these factory jobs that went overseas as far as making the products that they sell.
Right.
And so between, him and his wife working on the board of Walmart, Bill Clinton, like you said, the 3 strikes and you're out, plus the NAFTA agreements, not to mention, he privatized radio in the 1990s when radio went to a couple of corporations own radios now versus old school radio where we had, where it looked more like the show WKRP in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Like just sort of one semi-rich person owns a studio, and you have like these DJs who get to play what they want, and it was a real art form.
Right.
And it turned it into basically where everything is either Latin radio, which is, there's a lot of Latin people here, they want to listen to their own radio.
Sure.
Or there was a major investment by religion. Catholic and Christian really took over radio. 700 Club bought all kinds of radio stations to further their agenda, and it really took radio from being this free enterprise of music to more to non-music basically, and allowed basically a couple of
talk radio
companies to run the whole operation. So, but I got to tell you, I look back at his presidency, and I used to have arguments with my dad about this. And he's like, the economy was booming. Well, we talked earlier, it wasn't exactly, not that he didn't do some things to sustain it. But I really don't look favorably upon his, and neither do historians, his presidency. And anyway, I have a individual story to share, and then which reminds me of the movie. Damn, I'm not sure if you saw Roger and Me by Michael Moore.
Man, I haven't seen that in years, but yeah.
Yeah, so that was about the all of the towns. Of course, Flint, Michigan is where he was from, and
Right.
the automotive industry just left there basically one by one. Every plant shut down, and they showed how it affected the towns and how it decimated families and basically decapitated the middle class throughout Michigan and throughout other areas, but especially Michigan. I can tell you that I grew up in a little town called Sturbridge, Massachusetts, and our neighboring town was called Southbridge. Now, Sturbridge was a little bit of a maybe upper class, a little bit more money went into our schools. The school sucked, so I don't know where the money went to.
Right.
But anyway, Southbridge was more of the industrial town, and they had factories and plants there. And it was really scary to watch all of these factories leave. In fact, one of the last major factories, which employed upwards of 1,200 people, and we're talking about a small town of, I don't know, 20,000 maybe at the most, maybe 10 to 20,000. So it employed 1,200 people. The company was American Optical that made glasses, and they moved to Mexico. And to see the effects on that town within a short time period, crime erupted. And that you could notice it wasn't just the crime. There was more garbage on the streets. It's like people didn't care anymore.
Mm.
So it's kind of like once you lose hope, you'd be surprised at the behaviors of people about how primitive they can get as far as robbing other people. Like, what the heck? I need to eat. Let's rob my neighbor. Let's just throw trash in the streets because what kind of hope do you have? It smelled like garbage over there.
Yeah.
And it was really, really horrible. They really looked at our town like, oh, those are the elite. We weren't. We just weren't lower class. Unfortunately, what happened is they went from being a middle class town with industrial jobs to the lower class, and it was really, really sad to see what happened there. And this is what pisses me off about stockholders in major companies, because you're making decisions, human decisions, when you're making financial decisions when you should be factoring in the human factor of what you're doing to towns. But these people that are major billionaires don't give a shit. They don't care less about what happened in Flint, Michigan. They can care less what happened in Southbridge, Massachusetts. They're above the crime. They're not going to be around it. They travel in limos and gates, and they have gated communities. Anyway, Sean, I'm not sure if you have any similar stories or what you think about like I said before, the decapitation of the middle class with all of these industrial jobs leaving.
I don't have any personal stories myself, but I just know that that the NAFTA agreement was just shitty, and it just kind of ruined this country. But if you don't invest in your towns and you don't have any income, then it's like the place you live is going to look like it's going to be a shithole. No one. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just gonna say you're gonna be living in a shithole. It's like that movie, Gummo. You ever seen Gummo?
No.
It was a story of the guy who made Kids back in the 90s. I forgot his name. Anyway, he made this movie called Gummo, and it's about this impoverished town in Ohio. And it's just, there's no investment in the town, so it's very poor, and, a lot of kids running around, no education, and it's just, you could just tell. It's just like there's a complete difference. You can see the investment in the towns that are wealthy as, compared to towns that are impoverished. So.
Yeah, and there's plenty of other, just one-off, the situations that I remember as far as a movie that I think of which is, nobody talks about this movie. It's not a very well-known movie, but it was a Danny DeVito movie in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And it was called OPM, which is Other People's Money, which...
does he play a scumbag who, like, rips people off?
Yes, an investor.
Right,
yep.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure, like, OPM, like, I think OPP maybe got their slogan from the acronyms from Other People's Money and just turned it into Other People's
Problem. Yeah.
But Other People's Money is basically about this small town where I think it was Gregory Peck owns a major factory which employs a lot of people. Now, what this guy would do, Danny DeVito's character would do research about, there's a great need for this product. This is why this factory or this company has been around this long. Whatever they're selling, it was little candies, little buttons, little trinkets, whatever it is. There's a need for it, but they're employing obviously American people. So he's, if I buy this company, I can invest in the company, liquidate by getting rid of all of the employees. I'm not saying sell the employees, but I'm saying you get rid of all the employees, and then you can actually move to Mexico, and then make triple or however many the profits, and you and your investors make a lot of money, and it just goes on and on.
Right.
That's one case that happens over and over again, and unless the American people wake up, and I don't know how you can stop major investors from, I guess you just not have to sell to those investors. I mean, now the thing is, if you have a board in your company, which in this movie there was a board that's basically where, like, the investor said, look, I'll guarantee you this amount of money if you vote to sell to me.
Yeah.
And it makes them a lot of money. And this happens over and over again. In fact, it happened with, in another Michael Moore movie, he talks about the Payday Candy, which was a huge, everyone knows the candy, and they're in Pennsylvania as well. There's lots of, besides Hershey, there's other companies in Pennsylvania that make candy. And they had record profits. And what they did is they promised the workers that if they made a certain profit margin, that they would give them raises. And what they did is they went back on their word, and when they made the record profit margins, they were able to up the ante as far as the sale of the company. The board sold the company to, I don't know if it was Mars or whoever they sold them to, a bigger company, which moved the factories down to, again, Mexico.
Yeah.
So underhanded tactics and it seems like it's never ending. And if we keep going in this direction, I mean, well, it's just really scary to think about where we'll end up.
So right now, as far as that subject goes, there are a lot of places where they're starting to unionize because a lot of people in different companies are getting fucked, and they're starting to realize, like let's look into unionization, because these corporations do not give a fuck about you, and you can take any type of material or any product, and entertainment to, you got UPS just unionized, Starbucks has been trying to unionize for the past 3 years, and people are starting to wake up and look, man, I'm important, and without me, you don't have shit. And so, I think unionization is a big help, and I think more people are starting to realize that if you come together and stand up and leave or not leave, but if you stand up and you say, no, I'm not gonna fucking take this shit anymore to the corporations, they're eventually gonna fold, because without these people, your products ain't shit. Like Marvel right now, their visual effects department is going to unionize because they're screwing those people. Actors right now, the SAG-AFTRA protests right now are going to start affecting, because right now there's a lot of movies that are going to be put on hold, and TV shows, and I think right now we're seeing we're seeing a lot of people getting tired of this shit. And it's, like I said, these corporations, they don't fucking care. These are like disgusting people that think that you can just screw people, take their labor and fuck them. And, and ship everything over. And it's fucked. It's fucked up how they're treating people. But we're seeing that a lot of people are getting tired of it. There's a lot of people Amazon. You had Amazon, like they're starting to unionize. A couple years ago they started to unionize, and Bezos hates it. A lot of these guys fucking. They had Howard Schultz on during a hearing, and he's getting burned by like Bernie Sanders and a lot of different senators, because it's just like, how do you explain union busting and treating your employees like shit? And he just, he's trying to, Howard Schultz is trying to glaze it over like, yeah, no, they're treated great and you don't need a union. And it's like, well, why not? So it's just that you can't, these, like I said, these people are tired of it. And I think unionization is a powerful tool. I think it's a great thing. And I think that's like the only way to do it, because it's like, you can't automate factories, all the factories. Humans are a big contributor.
AI?
I mean,
that's another episode, but yeah, I can understand when you're setting up a company, you have to have a business model, you have to have cost figures and projections,
right,
to assimilate a certain amount of wealth to attract stockholders. I just think stockholders have too much power in what happens, and they make too much money. And I believe that there should be higher amounts of profits going back to employees, which makes so much more sense, because they're the ones that, you don't think that an employee is going to take more pride in something if they actually have a stake, a financial stake, more than just an hourly wage,
right?
And some shitty benefits. And I'm looking specifically at Amazon, because when you have a guy that builds a mansion that's as big as a large city, like at one point when he was amassing his wealth, and he's worth $250 billion now, when he was amassing his wealth, at what point did he say, okay, I'm worth $500 million, let's start to shift the wealth a little bit in this company, where I make a little bit less and the stockholders make a little bit less, and we actually give more to the employees and pay them a little bit more. At what point do you stop being such a fucking pig and say, let's spread a little of this around? This is why I believe, and this is a very controversial subject, I think there should be a maximum wage. You should only be able to make maximum amounts of money. And yes, I realize there's going to be a huge problem with people hiding their wealth. It's just going to make smart, rich people bend the law more to try to hide their money overseas. But then, you know what? What the fuck is the IRS for?
Right.
So what? To go after some people making $20,000 a year to see if they hit oh, you made money gambling last year. Let's make sure that you get audited for that.
It's funny you say that. Like, I think we mentioned this before. I was watching Bill Maher on his first show, and he had Jello Biafra on, the singer and speaker.
From which band?
Dead Kennedys, the singer for the Texans. Yeah, there we go. So he promoted that, and Bill Maher fucking wigged, like, that's not fair, and like, people should make money and blah, 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 Mr. Progressive. And it's like, he's like, dude, does Michael, at the time, this was the 90s, so he's like, does Michael Jordan really need $100 million? Like, these people have so much money. It's like, do you really need that? You like, and I said this before, where if you physically take and you put it in cash, right, all their money, all the billions, and you put it in the fucking room, like, there's no way in hell you will ever spend all that money and physically see all that money ever. It doesn't even affect these people. Like, they're just gluttons. It's like they're living up the 7 deadly sins. It's like, you're fucking crazy, man. Like, you have people starving and unable to take piss breaks at Amazon. Walmart has people on food stamps, and these people are so rich. And it's like, I don't know how you can, like, live with yourself when the people working under you are fucking hurting. It's like if you treat people good, they will work their ass off for you. And short of taking a bullet for you, you know, I don't get it. I never understood that with rich people, how you could be so selfish. And like, you know, I just never understood. And these are people that don't have to deal with that shit. They don't ever have to talk to their employees. They can seriously sit in their own mansion, and they can totally be separate from society. And that's the other issue I have with wealthy people, is like they live within our society, they live in their own society. And they completely can be cut off from the rest of it, because you see it. All these rich people, they have no idea what the fuck's going on in the world. And
now, come on now. Now, look, this is ridiculous. How can we take away from billionaires their ability to compete against other billionaires? How can you say to the guy that's the fourth richest guy, you shouldn't have the opportunity to be the first richest guy? How can you look at a Forbes list and say, hey, I'm number 4.
Right. I'm
driven to be number 1. And it drives you more than paying your people a livable wage.
I don't get it, dude.
Obviously, that was, I got to tell you, the more I talk about this, it really seems like, I don't know, I get a little defeated about it, because we're going in one direction in this country, and it's a winner-take-all. I call it a lot for little and a little for a lot.
Yeah.
Basically, the separation of rich and poor is growing, and billionaires, I'll tell you what, they're infecting government. They're infesting government. They are getting involved in government. They want to get involved in writing laws. I mean, Elon Musk wants to tax people who don't have kids more because they, quote unquote, don't know, or wants to restrict their voting rights because they don't have a stake in the future.
What the fuck, dude? Like,
who the fuck do you think you are, you fucking piece of shit? I don't get this, man. I get nuts.
No, this guy, like, there's another issue that is included with the wealth issue. Is like a lot of these fucking assholes are like contribute to fascism. The Mercers, you know, I think then they start Breitbart. You have like who are those two asshole brothers?
The Koch brothers.
The Koch brothers, like they're
from Wisconsin.
You know, like they're fucking they're part of the problem. You know, a lot of them vote fucking Republican and conservative, and you know, but they're behind a lot of the politics and the policies now going on. Like you had Clarence Thomas was just reported to have like 4 major billionaires, and him and Alito have 4, you know, all these major billionaires kicking them down, you know, kicking them some money and treating them like, you know, spoiling them. And it's just like, how do you, what the fuck is the problem with these people? I just think, you know, I personally think that, you know, hacker groups like Anonymous, I think they should, you know, and I don't know, I'll probably get in trouble for this, but like, I think they should steal their money and distribute it to people in different ways. It's like, because it's like, how else we're going to deal with this? Because like the system protects them. You know, there's a lot of millionaires who are politicians, and it doesn't, you know, they don't give a fuck. And another rich problem is the NRA is super rich, or it used to be. Wayne LaPierre's a fucking rich asshole, and they're supplying death weapons. So it's like guns, you know, policies, politicians. I mean, another douchebag, you know, compliments, like, what really kills me is, like, when you have, like, celebrities, especially rappers, who brag about being from the hood, and then they leave, and then they become Republicans, and then they douche on the places that they're from. Lil Wayne, like, Republican, fucking huge, you know, bragging about how much money he has. Like, did you put any of that back, man? Did you go back to where you're fucking from? Jay-Z's the same thing. Like, I just heard like a month ago where Beyonce had a bunch of people kicked out of they kicked a bunch of these guests at a hotel out so they could, you know, help, they could give a whole floor or something to Beyonce. And it's just like, it's like, you know, what the fuck is wrong with you? Dave Chappelle goes into city. He goes into a meeting, a city meeting, and he threatens he literally says, "You know who I am? Like, I want this comedy club here." No. And it's like, the irony is, it's like he's gonna fuck over these poor white people because the majority of the town is white, and it's like, you're gonna fuck these people over, and that's the town you decide to reside in because you got a big history there, and you're gonna throw your name because he's fucking rich. And it's just, I'm starting to just, I have issues with rich people, and it's like, wealthy people make me sick. I work where I work. They come into my fucking job. I live in Juneau. Every summer we got people who come in yachts. They fucking come in. They're chefs. Fucking take a shitload of product from my department for their boat, and the citizens of this town are affected because it's like, oh, well, this boat had to have like fucking 100 pounds or 300 pounds of bananas and shit, and it's like, and that's a small thing, it's just these rich people, man, they're disgusting. I'm having less and less fucking sympathy for them as human beings because, I mean, dude, Elon Musk is like in trouble right now because it's like he's trying to protect child molesters and people supporting kiddie porn and distributing it on Twitter, and he's trying to or X, and he's trying to defend them, and fascists. Like, dude's he's an Afrikaan. He's a fake African.
Right. Not only that, but the government, it just came out in the Trump trial of the documents case, they had to subpoena Twitter to get Donald Trump's Twitter account to be able to look at their, because there's obvious crimes being committed. They didn't even comply with the subpoena. Elon Musk did not supply with the subpoena. He gave them information, but only after the subpoena date. That motherfucker should go down for that. I mean, that's it. I can't stand rich people. And by the way, we have to end this topic here quickly because we're getting off of more of the immigration. We're going into income inequality. But I'll tell you what. He's someone we have to talk about in the future because he's just, like you said, a South African. Coming in here and basically flouting America's rules and policies and laws when it comes to subpoenas about a trader keeping documents, supposedly using them to make deals with other countries. Or you know what I heard with Trump is with what part of the documents, at least when he told somebody, is that he has dirt on foreign leaders. And he might try to blackmail them to say, like, look, unless you come out and give me money or let me put my hotels or my, not casinos anymore, he's out of that. Unless you put my hotels in your country, I'm going to out you that you did this and you did that because he's got all the intel dirt on them. What
about Elon Musk? The dude's, like, is he an American citizen? Is he here legally? And let's talk about immigration. This white motherfucker, South African douchebag, comes to the United States, and he gets grants to the American government supplies him with grants so he could do his make his death machines. I mean, it's like, what about these rich people like from other countries who fucking come here? It's like the Russians. You have all these Russian mob and ex-KGB agents here doing shit. Like, why don't we remove foreign gangs? You want to talk about immigration? Let's fucking crack down and just destroy these fucking assholes who come from other countries and do crime here. I mean, what the fuck is up with that?
All right. Well, we have devolved into a nonstop four-letter word barrage against rich people.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. I'll tell you what, Jim, we have to have those two. You mentioned the Supreme Court earlier. The more I read about Clarence Thomas, he makes me sick.
This guy was a fucking Panther, man. He was part of the fucking Black Panthers, man.
All right, let's hang on to that information. I'm sorry, man. We got to cut it off.
Yeah.
This was Master Blaster Podcasters putting this information on blast. Please check us out on RSS. This is our third episode, Immigration. Look for more of DM's venom when it comes to Supreme Court and income equality with me, Geeziz, and we will be Coming at you next time. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great night.
All right. Thank you.